Hey, what's up, guys? This is Sebastian Castillo coming to you on Friday morning here in Cancun. And I was thinking I would do like a Zoom recording where I can put a nice background and I don't have to show the plain white wall behind me and the air conditioner. But then I thought, I need to keep it raw. I need to keep it straight with everyone. And I want this to be different because you look out there at all this content these days. Everything from the thumbnail to the production is all airbrushed and edited and made to look really appealing. But if you're the kind of person that I want watching this channel, you won't care about this stuff. You just want the raw truth. You want someone on the ground to tell you how it is, or at least their perspective. This video today, it's about how important it is to network, even though I don't really like that word, and also just kind of giving an update on the mindset and the experiences of being in a place like Mexico, doing the whole working online thing and living outside of your country and doing sales. So let's just start there. It's funny because people will say once you get into sales, you'll never be without a job or you'll never go hungry. That's true to an extent because this is a highly marketable skill. Every business needs people in sales and they need competent experts. They need someone to come in and tell them, this is what we should do. This is how I'm going to deliver value. This is how I'm going to get on calls and bring more people into your business. So, and you don't have to be a sales coach or world-class sales expert in order to do that, right? What I want to share with you here, though, is you can't take all of these things for face value, right? Even as a sales rep, you will have hard times. This is one of the riskiest and most turbulent industries out there, especially doing the online sales. If you're doing sales in person still, knocking doors or going into an office to cold call, I would argue that there's actually a little bit more security because it's much more accessible. That side of the industry has existed for decades. The online component, doing sales remotely, is still relatively new. I would say it was probably a little over 10, maybe 15 years ago that this became a thing where you could just do sales at home or from whatever location you want. And even now, it's still largely unknown to a lot of people, but I think it's growing, especially since the pandemic in 2020 when a lot of people wanted to start working from home. That's the same year that I left my home country of Canada and I came down to Mexico and I started learning about how I could make money on the internet for myself. It was a pretty simple desire, a pretty simple path to pursue. Just make money on the internet. And, you might have been brought to this channel because you've already seen some of this content out there about doing online business, doing sales, copywriting, all this stuff. And maybe you've seen some of these influencers. You've seen Co, you've seen Luke Belmar, you've seen Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, the OGs, Sam Ovens, Mosey, Alex Becker, all of these guys. I'm just rattling their names off. It's funny because this is actually a fairly small sphere. The average person on the street doesn't know about these guys. Even people who might well be into business may not know Alex Hormozy or Russell Brunson and any of this stuff, any of these guys. So this is actually still a relatively small niche, and it gets even smaller, like I said, when we only limit it to doing it purely online or doing it remotely. So there's still a lot of uncertainty. If you want certainty, you go into industries that are tried and true and that aren't going anywhere, and probably you do it in person. I was just on Instagram, I was seeing an ad or No, I followed this guy's profile where he talks about how you can work a week in Australia on oil rigs or some sort of labor like that. You can earn a fairly good wage and then you live in Indonesia for 3 weeks out of the month and you live very well with the money that you make in Australia. This is a strategy that I think a lot of people have had until recently in terms of being able to enjoy the luxuries of living in a low cost of living place with a nice environment where it's fairly relaxed, and then physically spending time in a place where the cost of living might be fairly high, but they're doing some kind of job or occupation that can pay them a suitable amount to make that worth it, and which they can then save a percentage and then again go to a low cost of living place like Mexico as well, or other parts of South America. And I've had people tell me, hey, why don't you just do something like that? Because you're still young, you're from Canada. I'm from Canada. I can go up to a place like Alberta. It's one of the provinces in Canada known for having a large deposit of oil reserves and mining operations and the like. You don't really need experience for this kind of stuff, although if you go get some education, even for 3 or 6 months, I believe, you can ascend to a higher ranking in those positions, or you can get positions that require it and some specialized knowledge, and you can get paid pretty decently. But that isn't something I would want to do, and I don't think I would recommend it for most guys who are fairly sharp. Think of it as brute forcing your way through it. You don't need to be very high IQ or very perceptive or have developed a whole bunch of skills to go and do that kind of work. It really is, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never done it personally, but from my perspective, it seems to be mostly labor, grunt labor. And again, if you have some specialized knowledge to bring to the table, they can pay you more. They can give you responsibilities that aren't so labor intensive. But I would say nowadays, with these kinds of opportunities online, even though it's risky, it's worth it. Even if you're making less money initially or for a little while. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday who I visited in Jordan in the Middle East a few months ago in November and December. Super sharp guy, super business savvy, and he gave me some real great advice and perspective. I was, I hate to use the word complaining, but I found myself complaining to him about my current situation, about how a few months ago I was doing exceptionally well financially, better than ever, well enough to go and take that trip and do a whole bunch of other traveling. And I told him I haven't been doing as well recently, and I'm stressed out and I'm upset with my performance and what my income has dipped to. And he said, firstly, this is business and sales. It's inevitable that you're going to have drops, but it's in these times where you have to double down on your strengths and you need to focus, you need to upskill, you need to be a lot more calculated with your effort and reflect on your performance. Like an athlete is their highlights, they're getting coaching sessions, they're practicing. You have to do that. This is not something that you can get away with doing in sales and business, especially in sales, as just make it more simple. It's a skill, like a professional athlete. LeBron, all of these guys, even though I'm not into sports at all, I can't really talk about this stuff. But from the bare basics, anyone can acknowledge that a professional athlete must practice on a consistent basis and they must be good. They have to stay at a certain level. Otherwise, if they don't perform, their career will end. Just like sales. This is a performance-based industry. You show up, you I will admit, I will tell you something. There were months or even days There were days or even months where I did not sleep well. I was arguably going out and having a lot of fun, and I would still close deals. I would still do pretty well. And the funny thing is that there were times, on the other hand, where I noticed a slump in performance and I was paying so much attention. I was concentrating so much. I was thinking, I have to really focus in, and my performance still wasn't getting much better. So, what I'm trying to say here about the sales stuff is that you have to have a nice balance. You cannot just completely go off and enjoy your life and not take at least some time during the week to reflect on your performance. But on the other hand, you also don't want to be locking yourself in your room the entire time just to do that, because it would reflect negatively on your performance. If you're not going out and fulfilling your needs to an extent with getting active, with going out with friends or girls, or getting together with family, and just doing all the other important things that make us human, that allow us to enjoy a good emotional state, then your your performance on these sales calls with people, and not even thinking of them as sales calls, but interactions with other people who have an issue, are going to suffer because you're not going to be fully present. You're going to be way too zeroed in on, should I say this? Should I do that? Blah, blah, blah. It's very difficult to explain, actually. But what I want to leave you with here, just to pull it back a little bit, because I know this is getting a little bit convoluted. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how difficult it seems, the opportunity that we have in 2024 to move to a different country, not having to kind of shuttle between the two, but actually live there full time, stay there, and visit other cities, and basically still be able to earn an income, still be able to earn money, and a fairly good one at that. In fact, there are people out there, maybe you've heard of this guy named Serge Guattari. Apparently, that guy's business does $600,000 a month. I'm not sure if that's his first take home or that's his gross revenue. In any case, in any case, the fact that someone in this day and age is able to do that, to make that kind of income and live a life where he can bounce to any location he wants. I was listening to an interview that this guy did in Cape Town, South Africa, right? I'm not sure what the circumstances were, but I don't think he lives there. So imagine being able to just pick up, go to Cape Town, South Africa, which for a lot of people is definitely going to be a fairly long flight. Stay there for what, a couple of days or a couple of weeks in fairly nice accommodation in a safe area of the city. Like, that is not something that most people could have access to in the past unless maybe they were employed by the government in a high ranking position or the military or something like that. Like, you didn't have the disposable income or the time or even the accessibility to just pick up and go to a place halfway around the world for a lot of people for such a brief time, then fly back to wherever you are or fly on to a different destination. Excuse me. That was very, very rare. But now in this day and age, we have this opportunity. The thing is, that kind of lifestyle is way, way up here. Okay. Doesn't mean that it's not achievable, but what it does mean is, for example, and I'm kind of talking to myself in this video too. The fact that you're able to make any kind of money on the internet and sustain yourself and actually live well, meaning you eat well, your bills are paid, you can even afford to go out to nice restaurants, you can take trips, you can go and do certain activities, go to an amusement park, go on a tour, go off to an island or whatever, that is still highly sought after. That is still pretty difficult for a lot of people to pull off. And the fact is, and this is just giving you perspective, when you tell people where you're from, who just work normal jobs, who haven't really lived a life similar to you at all, it's very difficult for them to believe it, and they don't recognize, a lot of them won't even kind of recognize the magnitude of that achievement. If you if you talk to a lot of folks, like for example, I'm from Canada. I'm from a city with about a half a million people, and when I was in high school and I looked around, I could tell you most of those folks were never going to really do anything miraculous or amazing with their lives. Some of them might have gone on to university and maybe they did a bit of traveling, but for the most part, many of those people were slotted right into just some kind of regular job, which is completely fine, right? But it's still a very tried and true path. It's quite conventional. And again, it can be fairly rewarding, right? I am still kind of in contact with this one guy I knew, and we were friends on and off, who, even in high school, he was heavily involved in tech stuff and robotics. And he went out to the British Columbia Institute of Technology, BCIT, right after high school. And I think he did his degree in construction management or something like this. And during that time, he got an internship, which turned into a job he would continue doing after finishing school. And then he's moved on to another job in the construction industry. And I think the guy pulls in anywhere between 80 to 100K a year in Canadian. So in American, that would be something more like between 55 to 75K. Again, that's very, very rough. And that's before taxes. And this is doing a job which, to my knowledge, is very much 9 to 5. Basically, you only have time for yourself on the weekends and a few hours each evening. So it's very regimented and it requires, a lot of, it requires you to be on site, so to speak, right? In an office and doing all of that. So it's a trade-off. If you decide to go and do something like that, basically you're saying that I don't have enough confidence in myself and in my abilities and my resourcefulness to go and do something different and actually live the life that I want. I mean, that's really what it is nowadays, knowing that all these different paths are available. So for myself, if you ever get down on the decisions that you've made and whatever position you've gotten yourself to, it's important to recognize you were just doing the things that you thought were the best decision at the time. Maybe when you look back, you think, oh, well, that was dumb with money. It was dumb of me to have spent X amount on this. I wish I hadn't because then I would have more money right now. Hindsight's 2020. Or just strategic decisions. Oh, I shouldn't have left Canada and moved to Mexico and continued living. Right? It doesn't really do anything. Not to say I feel that way. I still do not regret ever. Don't regret it at all. It was the best decision, one of the best decisions I ever made. Another one of the best decisions I ever made was committing to making a living on the internet and making a good living and learning this shit. One of the last notes I want to make here before I end the video, because we're already at around 20 minutes, is it gets very easy to feel like you're falling behind when you compare yourself to what you see on social media. That is not to say that you should be content with a slow rate of progression, because you can progress and you can change and you can make money very, very quickly if you know the right steps. If you know the right steps to doing online business, either starting your own offer or working on someone else's offer, for example, as a freelancer doing email copy or working as a closer in someone else's business and closing their deals, you can make money very, very quickly and you can make good money very, very quickly. I'm not going to share figures here, but to put things into perspective, there was a day in October when I made more money in one day than I had in an entire month the year prior. In fact, it was significantly. But that absolutely changed my perspective. And the funny thing is, it didn't even feel that impactful. It was just like, okay, yeah, I'm happy that money came in or that those deals closed. But it wasn't quite as thrilling as when I first started to make that money. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it, right? When you first start in this arena, it feels so impossible. But then you really start to break it down. You start to recognize the people who are really making money in this space are not all that much smarter than you, and that the information is there. You can learn this. You can learn how to actually build up a business. You can learn how to effectively generate leads. You can learn how to put a proper offer together. You can learn how to actually run a sales call either on the phone or on Zoom, go through a process. Again, maybe it's not going to be totally perfect and it's not going to be what your 5-year veteran sales trainer thinks is optimal. But talk to enough people on enough calls, you will close some deals and you will learn and you will fulfill whatever service or maybe sell them a product, whatever it is. The important thing is that you learn and that you don't give up. You continue to move forward in this because there are a bunch of resources out there. And thankfully, we have people who have actual accolades, who have accomplished something in this space, who are quite skilled in their chosen field, whether it's, again, doing copy, doing lead generation, doing sales, or actually doing some kind of fulfillment, like being a fitness coach who helps people lose weight or gain muscle. And to be more specific, lose 30 pounds in 3 months, or get chiseled abs and shoulders within 6 months, whatever it is, right? There is a market for this kind of stuff now. There's a demand for it. Regular people, regular people who are working 9 to 5s, or even other business owners, or other people who are in this space, they are starting to pick up on the fact that they can pay someone with more experience and more knowledge to just sit down with them and answer their questions and talk to them. That is super valuable for a lot of people out there. And I know because I've worked in this industry now for well over a year, and I have been on both sides of the fence where I paid for the knowledge and the coaching, or I was getting a commission for making a sale for this kind of stuff. So this is growing. This is showing no signs of stopping. And if anything, I think we're still in the very early days, which is why it's so important to start doing this kind of thing now. This is going to wrap up the entire. If you're familiar with the stock market or any kind of financial market, you'll see that over time, things go up. The S&P 500 goes up. Even if it dips 1 year or for 2 years, it goes up. The price of housing, it's a bubble, it's going to burst. That's what they say every year. It just keeps going up. Inflation just keeps going up. Bitcoin just keeps going up. I mean, at this point, there is no certainty, but there's a very strong possibility that and probability that everything will just keep going up. What you choose to do with your time and what you invest in terms of your life path. If you want to do 9 to 5, if you want to work in a bank, if you want to work in a construction company, if you want to, what else are people doing? Work in consulting, if you want to work in, if you want to work as a musician, these are things that are like stocks. They will go up. You will gain knowledge in that one specific area. You will gain experiences in that one specific area, and then you'll be able to share them with other people. The trick here is to make sure that as early as possible, you learn how to do or accomplish something that is difficult for a lot of other people. You learn how to solve a real problem that a lot of people have and be able to actually give them some advice and help them make a change in their lives. So, what I've been doing for a living has been, again, it's a very tangible thing. People are overweight, they're sick, they're in pain, and they have not had any results with doctors or supplements or other programs. And they are willing to pay for guidance. They're willing to say, yes, I am willing to invest whatever it is, whatever amount within reason to speak to someone who can actually help me and solve the problem. I paid for sales training in the end of February and he upsold me and I happily paid more because I recognized the amount of value that I could get from it in terms of I'm speaking to someone with years of experience, with accolades, who's worked and networked with big names in the industry, who has sold a ton, and who's currently still active in the industry and is still honing his skills, still speaking to high level guys. So that was a real eye opener. And that was something worth spending my time on and my money on because I have chosen this path. And I know that even if things are a little bit slow at some point here, as long as I continue to learn about this stuff, and the more I invest in speaking to coaches and getting education like this, the more valuable that I become, my experience and my knowledge becomes. And it won't be long before someone else comes to me and they're looking to solve the same problems that I had. And I'm able to charge them money for it and actually help them with it because I solved those problems, right? It's funny because some people see it kind of as a giant circle, but it's not because the fact of the matter is we still have so many people out there, for example, who are grossly overweight, who are in pain, who are dealing with problems that have been provably solved many, many times with a certain methodology and approach, right? There's a lot of needless suffering and pain in the world, but people are either too stingy or they don't grasp the concept of, hey, if you want to continue suffering and try figuring it out yourself, you can do that. How long are you willing to do that? Like how much longer are you willing to hold out until you find something better that can actually help you? Or you can face the facts and say, okay, well, it's going to hurt. It's going to sting to pay whatever, $2,500, $5,000 for coaching. But what I have to gain, even if it's simply the opportunity at improving my lot in life and my situation and my skill set and getting better results is worth it. Be worth it. It's a little bit harder to calculate ROI when it comes to an offer like helping someone lose weight, but when it comes to business, it is a little bit trickier too. But if you charge someone $1,500 for sales coaching and you're able to get their skill level to the point where in 1 week they can make $1,500, that's absolutely worth it. Sales coaching online as well, right? So this is something that I may be offering in the future once I get to an even better level because then I'll have actually gone through the fire And you can watch a video like this of me being 100% honest and raw about my situation and see that progression. Because don't get it twisted either. Even in my own life, this principle of always going up has held true. As I said, last year, I provably made enough money to go and take multiple trips to different countries. And that was without having a 9 to 5 job. That was without having to live in one physical location and having an employer in a traditional sense and having to physically commute to an office and all that stuff. I lived a very different life now. And this is something that I guess maybe, oops, oh, again, raw and unfiltered. I guess, again, as I was even touching on, is hard to grasp and understand for a lot of people who chose a more conventional and normal path. Like I can wake up any time of day that I want. I can work as much as I want or as little as I want. But the important thing is that the numbers need to make sense. If I choose to only work 4 hours a day for a week, that means that in those 4 hours, I have to make sure I produce the same amount or not, if not more value than I would working 8 to 10 hours every single day that week. In terms of sales, that can mean, for example, if in 8 hours of making dials and actually closing deals, you bring in, let's say, at least one sale for $150. Well, you need to be able to generate one sale for $150 in 4 hours if that's the lifestyle that you choose. So this is this definitely requires more regimentation and discipline than an average person, I'd say, is capable of. Because as we can see, in the case of more conventional corporate positions and jobs, people do mostly need someone to come in and direct them, instruct them, and tell them what they need to do in order to generate revenue or at least be valuable enough for the company to keep them on. So that is it. That is it for this video. I hope this has given you some perspective, but um, whatever path that you've chosen, again, there are going to be some down times where maybe you feel like if you'd taken a different route, that things would look radically different. But no matter what path you take, there are going to be some challenges. And even if you feel like you're behind when you look at all these other people flexing their supposed lifestyle on social media, their cars, their trips to Dubai, the girls, all this stuff, it's easy to feel like you're behind in life and that maybe you should give up and that this was all just a farce and this is you being in over your head. But then you have to recognize, again, this is more me talking to myself, how far you've come. You've already accomplished many things that most people would not be able to, especially in the way that I did it. Again, if you don't know my story, I had maybe like $2,000 when I left Canada and I had no concept of making money online. I had no sales experience and I had no real plan. I just got on a flight and I came here and I said, I'm going to make it somehow. And in a way, I have, because if I wanted to, I could stop working right now and I could live for the rest of the year completely fine, still being able to pay rent, still being able to pay for food and whatnot. Not an issue at all. But that's not the vision I have for my own life. Because now that I know, the funny thing is, once you get into this online space and you make your first dollar, you realize, okay, so I made my first dollar doing XYZ. If I want to make another dollar, do it again and again and again and again and again and again. That's okay for the beginning, right? Because even in sales, you're still selling. That is one of the main caveats to this, but it's a wonderful entry point into this entire ecosystem and way of life because at least you're getting a fairly decent amount of money for the time that you're spending, as opposed to just a regular 9 to 5 where you must be present, you must be working for a set amount of time every single day, week, month in order to get paid your salary, which does not change at all. It doesn't go up, but it doesn't go down either. So this is commission sales in business, this is a very risky departure from that in the eyes of some people. So you need to be able to stomach that. And I was. Most people aren't. Most people don't have the kind of safety net that they need in order to do that. This is why I think you see a lot of younger guys in sales because many, if not, I would say a lot these days, start selling when they're still living with their parents and they still have that kind of safety net. Some might not be, some might already be in university or whatnot. But the important thing is, young people and young men especially have much higher risk tolerance than most other people. And this is another issue that isn't discussed very often regarding the 9 to 5 lifestyle. Okay, the very, very last thing I'll say. Once you get used to that kind of stability, it's almost impossible to give it up because those people get comfortable, not just mentally and physically. I mean, a lot of them do tend to let themselves go. They get overweight. They don't take care of their body and their health anymore. But they get saddled down with all of these bills and these debts, especially, right? People clue into the idea, oh, wait, I make $80,000 a year. That means I can qualify for a mortgage. I can buy this place. And oh, yeah, I can save $20,000, $30,000 and make that as a down payment. Then I've got a house and then I've got a nice car. Do you? Or do those things have you? I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with doing those things in terms of financing them or doing them on credit, but the problem, the overwhelming, gigantic problem I see for a lot of people in Western countries is that they cannot stop working because they need to continue paying for all this stuff. And if they don't pay for it, then not only will their lifestyle suffer that they've grown so accustomed to, it will be so much harder to claw themselves out of that hole. But it's even more difficult if you have people depending on you, if you have a family. In my mind, especially in this day and age, you probably can't, you probably shouldn't have a family if you're if you're doing 9 to 5, unless you're getting paid really, really well and you've got your expenses really, really minimized. I mean, that's a controversial topic. I'll put it this way. I myself would not want to have a family if I'm still tied to a 9 to 5, no matter how stable it might seem. Because we all saw in 2020 how unstable things really were. No matter what kind of concept of stability you had at that point, it was shown that restaurants and movie theaters and golf courses and skate parks and literally all of these businesses, all these money-making paths that people thought would never get shut down, would never suffer, no matter how bad things got, they suffered big time. So that's the last message for you. If this is the kind of lifestyle that you want, and you want to get out there, you want to do sales, you want to get into the online business space, you're going to have to sell in some way. That's a given. Unless you do some kind of VA kind of grunt work that is typically low paid, and it's low paid for a reason because pretty much anyone else can come in and do it. But at the end of the day, you're going to be doing something which getting in contact with other people and asking them for money in some way. So you might as well get good at it. You might as well take the earlier rather than later. You might as well get the idea out of your head that you're going to ever go back to 9 to 5 or doing anything that remotely resembles that. Because the longer you stick in this game, I guarantee you, you will get to a point where you're not only making where you can make as much as people working back home in their 9 to 5s, and you can make a whole lot more, and you can keep a whole lot more, and you can enjoy your life a whole lot more and have way more freedom. That freedom comes with a cost. The freedom to, like I said earlier, wake up whenever you want, be able to work in virtually any kind of location that you want, to basically set your own terms, deal with the only kinds of people that you want, and work really as hard or as little as you want. That is, those are luxuries that are scarcely available to most people on the planet. So if that means only making, you know, a few $1,000s a month or a year or two or three or four, to then get to the point where you can make even more than that, 10, 20, 30, $50,000 a month, which is by all accounts a significant amount, and most people can live very, very well on that kind of money and move very far ahead in their lives and buy properties and everything, then that's worth it to me. It's maybe not worth it to a lot of other people. Maybe a lot of other people, like I said earlier, they don't have the confidence in themselves and they don't believe that this kind of lifestyle is even possible or sustainable. But I know it is. And I hope that you can now see, based on what I've broken down in this video, that it is too. Even if it's going to kind of suck for a little bit, or there's going to be major peaks and valleys. There will be valleys, no matter what path you choose. And no matter how good some guys try to make it seem like it is on social media. So that is the very last thing I will say. If you watched until the end of this video, thank you. And I hope it was really helpful in opening your eyes to what's possible. And again, later down the line in a year or two, it'll be funny to look back on a video like this and see what I was talking about, where my mindset was at, because guarantee you, this background will be different. It'll be a lot nicer. It'll be the ocean on the west coast of Mexico, or it will be the Appalachian Mountains in Argentina, or it will be the coastline in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, or a castle in Germany, right? Like I've got big plans. I'm going to go places, and you're all going to see it. And this will be a testament to the process making this happen and going through this journey. So take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.